everybody, and welcome to Finding Wendy, my journey to wellness. So today I have a very, very special guest, a good friend and incredible musician in person, Miss Brynn Albanese. So she's going to be talking to us today on my podcast, and I hope you enjoy it. So let's dive right in. All right. Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, was Miss Brynn Albanese, and I'm so happy to have her here today on this podcast, Finding Wendy, Journey to Wellness. Brynn, thank you so much for joining me. We have known each other for, I dare say, more than 30 years, maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Seems like a lifetime.
Yeah, and you are such a wonderful musician, and you've done some wonderful things, and we have so many things in common, and we have lots to share. So let's get right into this, and thank you so much for joining me on my podcast, and let's talk a little bit about yourself. Tell our listeners your background and achievements and what sort of wonderful things you've done and where you're from and where you're, everything. Go.
Well, okay. So I am from I'm not from the central coast of California, but now I live there. I'm from Los Angeles, and I was born in 1968. Promise I'm not going to make this a total molecule story, okay? Like first there was a molecule, then there was an atom. Or was it the other way around? Anyway, so back in 1968, my parents were living in Los Angeles. They were both professional musicians. I had me and my brother, and we moved to a place called Palos Verdes, which is down in the LA area. My dad was a music teacher there, so he taught everything having to do with music, choir, band, wind ensemble, orchestra, you name it, he did it. He was kind of the Mr. Holland's Opus of the music scene down there. Clarinet player. My mom was a professional cellist. My grandfather was a professional pianist. My great aunt is a very famous opera singer named Licia Albanese. You have to say my name with your hand, my last name, Albanese.
Right.
You'll always remember it. So Licia is Licia. She lived to be 105. She was an incredible opera singer, one of the prima donnas of the last century. My brother played the trombone and piano. So you can imagine that music was always a part of my life from when I was in my mom's womb. She would play her cello, and I could hear all the vibrations. I was feeling the vibrations. And music is all about vibrations, which we'll talk about later. So I began playing the violin. They asked me what I wanted to play. I didn't want to play what they played, so I just chose the violin because they brought us to rehearsals all the time, and I saw just the cellos and the violins from the audience at the rehearsals. And I couldn't see any other instruments, so that's kind of why I chose the violin.
Uh-huh.
I was playing when I was 5. I'll be 56 next month. So it's kind of like one of the only things that I ever know. I quickly realized that I had a natural talent for music, natural talent for violin. I won a lot of competitions when I was young in the LA area, went to a lot of summer camps, ended up going to Peabody Conservatory of Music in Baltimore. That was a wonderful experience to be away from home and on the East Coast. And I ended up staying on the East Coast for about 12 years. I was concertmaster of a lot of different orchestras and also the Tanglewood Music Festival Orchestra for 2 years. I got the long end of the stick there, or is it the short end? I don't know which one is better. Which one is better?
I don't know, short or long. They're both good. They're both good sticks, I think.
Yeah. So I just had a really, really good musical life over there. And I eventually moved to Boston, where I quickly became sort of a semi-permanent or a permanent substitute with the Boston Symphony, which means you don't have a contract, but you play everything. Recordings, tours, you name it, everything. Pops, the Boston Pops with John Williams and Keith Lockhart.
And you recorded for many of the films. You're on a lot of the film soundtracks, the John Williams soundtracks.
Exactly. So when I was living in Boston and playing with the Boston Pops, I was exposed suddenly to all this music that I actually was listening to as a kid. We had those Life magazine books like Italy, Spain, Greece, and you could thumb through them. So, but my parents also bought me and my brother this LP of this woman named Gula Gil, an Israeli singer that sings fluently in 9 languages. So her Gula Gil, Gill, and I think her first name is Geula or Guela. I can't remember which way it is. But we listened to that record till it was like so scratched. And then later on, I found a copy on eBay when I was an adult, and I bought one. Anyway, to make a very long story short about my music, that Pops experience really sort of launched me into becoming the multi-genre violinist that I am today. So I truly am multi-genre, and the way that I became fluent in improvisation was practicing. How would I do that? Well, I traveled a lot by myself with my violin in my backpack. I went to Europe. I went to Alaska, and particularly Alaska. I got on the state ferry and I slept. It was pretty cheap back then. You could sleep on the state ferry. I brought my violin and I went to all these pubs and taverns where they would have these open mic nights, like old school style in the 90s. So like 1996. And because I was a classically trained violinist and I had chops and I played in tune, everybody was just dumbfounded. They were like, oh my God, somebody who can actually play is playing with us. And I didn't know what I was doing at all. I was terrified. I was like more terrified of that than being concertmaster in front of 10,000 people at Tanglewood. I mean, just going up and like trying to improvise to someone playing. But over the years, I just challenged myself even more and more to do that. And then I started getting favorite genres like tango, and I loved klezmer, and I have Jewish side of my family and Italian. So being Jewish and Italian, you got the best of both worlds. It's just and also the best of both worlds regarding food too, which we'll go into later in the podcast.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Our journey to wellness. Yes. So then all of a sudden we met in Holland when I was still living in Amsterdam, and you moved to Holland after winning an audition with the orchestra in The Hague, the residency orchestra. And then we met each other at a crazy party in we've been best buddies ever since.
Yeah, Wendy helped me get me my first computer, which was one of those boxes, those iMac. What was it? Apple?
The Apple.
Gosh, I don't even know.
It wasn't an apple. It wasn't like a physical fruit. No, it was an Apple computer, and it was called the iMac. And the iMac, it came in different colors. And what was your color again? Wasn't it turquoise?
It was like sort of, yeah, it was.
It took it, and it was, of course, dial up to connect to the internet. It was that sound that you used to have with the dial up. And then so we met at a party, and we had lots of parties ourselves later. And then you moved back to the U.S. and I moved back to Canada, and then you played with this wonderful group, Cafe Musique, for many years.
Yeah. So when I moved to Holland, it was after the Boston Symphony. It was in 1998. I moved. I wanted to have an experience of living in Europe, and I had a tragedy happen while I was there. My brother committed suicide, and he was very mentally ill with obsessive compulsive disorder and body dysmorphic syndrome, kind of like what Michael Jackson suffered with. The obsessive compulsive disorder, he felt like he had a cancer, and it was a very, very painful experience for me and my parents. And I just didn't want to leave everybody at home alone in California. So I moved all the way back to California. And we got through a few years of really tough things. A bad relationship for me with someone out in California, and when I first got there. But the thing that really, really saved me and just rocked my world completely was a band that I joined called Cafe Musique, Musique. And there was an accordion, violin. So those were the two like solo instruments, a guitar. Later on, it became two guitars, bass, upright bass, and percussion and vocals. So imagine that combination of instruments. You could do practically anything with
That's
that.
right. Yeah, that's right.
So there's my multi-genre thing coming back.
That's right.
And I did the whole Freeway Philharmonic thing in California. We call it Freeway Philharmonics, because you just drive to one orchestra, you drive to another orchestra, and they're all union orchestras, and they're pretty good pay and everything. Got pretty old pretty fast.
Yeah.
But,
and the Cafe Musique, you did many recordings, and all the recordings are available on Spotify. So if you want to look up Brynn's group on Spotify, you can find it. I think you're also on Apple Music as well.
Yeah, you can find them on YouTube too. But it was amazing. And I had 12 years with that band. And then I started getting really good at improvising, and other people began to ask me to play with their groups, and I did a bunch of recording and stuff. So that's musically. And then I kept concertmaster positions, and I've still played recitals and chamber music. I tried to kind of, engulf everything that I was doing.
That's right.
Out there to the world.
And then the pandemic.
Oh. Yeah. Wow.
So what happened during the pandemic? So here you were playing on your Freeway Philharmonic gigs. All the gigs stopped. Everything, the world stopped. We all had to be at home, and we all had to somehow make some income or get along. And what did you do, and what happened during the pandemic where you all of a sudden went down this new path? First of all, two paths where you had bariatric surgery, and you became a certified music practitioner and death doula.
Yes. So I think you're probably going to see some pictures of me before, but I did want to mention, I did fall in love with someone in 2010. We got married in 2015, my wife, Amber, and we moved into a lovely little rental in Cambria, California, where I'm residing now. And I never ever thought that I would ever find anybody that I would remotely think about spending the rest of my life with. Because at 46, I was like, oh, it's too late. I'm never going to meet anybody.
Never say never.
Well, she is. I got dated women and men throughout my whole life, so I I think, I don't know what you call that, a pansexual.
I don't know. My door swings both ways.
And it's like, so I found the person for me, okay? That's how I'm going to say it.
Yep.
And she's totally the opposite of me. But it was very funny. When I met her, I was in super good shape. Like I was going to the gym. I always struggled with weight my whole life. I was never morbidly obese, but getting there for me, and always struggled with it. Been on, every type of diet and exercise program, just like Miss Wendy here. And just not really finding lasting results. Like what was going on? What's behind all this? Amber and I, 2015, we got married. And then when 2020 came, it was St. Patrick's Day. And our lives came to a screeching halt. I mean, just all of a sudden, your calendar is completely empty.
Yep.
And wow, what now? So my wife had a state job, which meant in the United States that you could get unemployment insurance. So we applied for that pretty fast, just like everybody else, or she did. And I realized that I had a couple of W-2 jobs, so I could also apply for it. And I did end up getting it, which was just a blessing.
Yeah.
Because
it's tough for a lot of people, a lot of musicians.
Yeah. As a musician, your life has completely stopped.
Yeah.
We have very good weather in California, in this part of California I live, which is the Central Coast. So I began immediately. I was drawn to continuing to provide live music for people somehow, some way, just like we all were. So we all got Zoom. We all went on Facebook and YouTube and started making these live presentations on there. That wasn't enough, really. No. And I wanted to continue to be able to, we wanted to continue to pay rent and so forth and so on. So many, many things happened, including dissolving of Cafe Musique. We had already decided in 2019 to begin to call it quits. The guys in the band were all getting in their late 60s and 70s, and people kind of wanted to start to go on with their lives. And that was okay with me. We had a wonderful run. So all of a sudden, our farewell concerts that we were doing in January and February of 2020, we had to stop them. We couldn't even finish them.
No, they were all canceled.
So Cafe Musique was finished. I had to find a way to still teach my students, so I taught them online, and we all are still doing that to this day. And then I found that I could play with karaoke tracks. Karaoke was a way that we had date night. We would set up in the living room and do date night. Being a multi-genre violinist and listening to more than just classical music, I found all these amazing backing tracks. And I started to just play with them and then put it out on Facebook and get all the little algorithm bots were like, you can't play that. We're going to mute you.
Yeah.
You can't play that.
It's a very frustrating time for a lot of musicians that were doing that, with playing with backtracks, and all of a sudden the algorithms were the bots or whatever, they're copyright infringement. And all of a sudden the music's muted. So, But
in the meantime, I did create a one-woman show that I eventually bought really good equipment, battery-powered equipment, and I took it out on the streets. And I began to play concerts in people's driveways, sidewalks, cul-de-sacs, balconies.
Yeah, because we're still during the pandemic. People still have to take distance from each other, so they bring their lawn chair outside, play outside in this gorgeous weather of California, and that was all possible. And that led to...
Yes. So I realized, lugging around all this equipment, that I was probably at the highest weight that I had ever been, because we were stressed. We were sitting in front of our computers a lot. I was sitting, just not really paying attention to what I was eating or how much I was eating. I wasn't exercising. I already had terrible knee pain in my right knee. It was at the point where I wanted to get an x-ray, but I couldn't because you couldn't even go to the damn doctor at that point. It's like, okay, just wait until something happens. One day I looked in the mirror and I was just like, who the heck is that? Like, what is going on here? And I started getting pain that I had never had before, lugging around all this equipment and being like, I don't know how long I can do this. So I began to talk with my friend Wendy.
Who? Could that be me, perhaps?
She had gotten, when was your surgery?
March 2018.
Right. So she had gotten her surgery, and you're at like the honeymoon period is like the best. You're at the lowest weight like two years after your surgery.
That's right.
That's where you get your lowest weight, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I should have done this a long time ago. So I talked to Wendy, and I was just like, maybe the bariatric sleeve could be a tool for me. So I talked it over with Amber and my parents and everybody, and I made an appointment after things started opening up again. I made an appointment with the local bariatric, was Dignity Health, which is a company that I'm working for actually right now, but we'll go into that soon. And I made an appointment, and lo and behold, she said, you qualify. I got a health test. I was borderline. I was already deep into diabetes too.
Yep.
I didn't know that. I had extremely high cholesterol. I was getting out of breath. I had just a high my blood pressure was around 140 over, I don't know, 80 something. That was already too high for me. I'd never had that before. All of the things that happen when you're overweight and not paying attention to it started happening to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was your highest weight?
Okay. So I'm 5'2".
Yeah.
5 feet 2 inches. And that's pretty short. And my highest weight was 246, something like that. 246 pounds. And I was a size 20. So in women's sizes go from size 2 or 0 all the way up to 20, to what, even more than 20.
Yeah, they go up to 38, 40.
6X
Yes.
or something.
Yes.
But I was
6X,
like,
yeah.
okay, so like in the X's, I was like 2X.
Yeah.
Going on to a 3X, like close. I was like, my gosh. And I started to collect pictures of myself.
Yeah.
And maybe Wendy, you can show those.
Yeah, I will show them. I'll post one right now, and everybody can see it. Will be beside your face when I edit and splice this all together. Yeah.
So I realized that a life of just exercising in the gym and lifting weights was not sustainable, and eating lettuce and carrots and celery
No.
and protein was also not sustainable.
No.
I had to find a way to eat less because food is love in my house. Food is love. You communicate with food. You have fun with food. You celebrate with food. It wasn't so much sadness. When I get sad and really stressed out, guess what I do? I don't eat.
Yeah. Yeah. I know of people of that, and I've read a lot about that. But I was going to ask you a really interesting question, because I've been, as you know, and my listeners know, I've been listening to lots and lots of podcasts. The thing about the yo-yo effect, that every time you go on a diet, you lose weight, you regain the weight, it really screws up your metabolism and your set point. Have you been, during your lifetime at all, did you struggle with weight? Was this during the pandemic, was this the first time you really gained a lot of weight?
Now that
because you did do a lot of exercise and lose weight when you were living in The Hague, what I remember. But anything before that?
Yeah, your body is younger. So in my 20s, I would definitely get chunky.
Okay.
Chunky, chubby. I was always chunky, chubby. Like, I think that my main size that I've been for almost my entire life is like a 16, 18.
Right. Yeah. So you have basically, as the way they call it, screwed up your metabolism because of the over the period of 20 or 30 years, you have done yo-yo dieting and that you've
gosh, yes.
gained and lost and regained, the loss and regains. From what I understand, leptin levels and our metabolism gets affected by this constant dieting. And so I just wanted to ask that question because I didn't know whether or not this was the first time in any time, but it was constant. All right. So then you decided to have, and you got a date for the sleeve surgery.
Yes, it was April 5th, 2022.
Right.
So to prepare for that, I had to follow all of the directions. And I just wanted to mention that in my family, being overweight is normal.
Yeah. It's in the genetics. Yeah, it's part of your genetics, the genetic obesity gene, whatever. It's passed on through generations. Yeah.
And so, and then my body getting older, between 40 and 50.
That's Winnie, your dog. Winnie, quiet. We're having an interview here.
From 40 to 50 is really when your body really starts to begin to change a lot.
Yeah.
Now that I'm 56, I will share this to the world. I have not entered menopause yet. It's very weird that I haven't yet. Yep. I'm definitely peri, which is why my body is also having such a hard time staying slim.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the hormones, everything. There's so many factors that I've been researching. There's so many factors that contribute to your weight and basically how your body metabolizes and everything. And a big part of it is the gazillions of different hormones, your gut hormones, everything that's in your body. And of course, I'm way beyond menopause. I had my menopause at 50 and it ended at 52. And now I'm 65 and it's far in the distance, thank God. But any menopausal women out there will probably also have issues with weight.
Yeah. So during the pandemic, I started to prepare for that. And it is a lot of work to prepare for that. You have to be committed not only to the process of getting ready for bariatric surgery, but you also have to be committed to finding possibly out if there are any emotional issues around why you are overweight.
And why you emotionally eat.
Is there anything I really was wanting to see if there was anything that was triggering all this. And basically it was just addiction to sweets, addiction to carbohydrates and things that turn into sugar like rice and pasta and bread and all that. I love all that stuff. Just because I got bariatric surgery doesn't mean I'm suddenly going to be thin. It is such hard work.
Maintenance. And that's the big secret, ladies and gentlemen. Just because you've had bariatric surgery, it doesn't fix the broken arm. You have to keep on going and keep on. I mean, our set point has been affected, definitely, but you do have to keep an eye on it, and you can't just go back to the way you were before because you can regain the weight.
Which brings me to, I lost. Let's see, my lowest weight was 169.
Wow.
I got out of the 170s. Now I weigh, I think, 188. Okay.
Which is still healthy.
What I wanted to say was have been lifting weights. And I have been very much trying to keep muscle mass, going because I got my knee replaced as well during this month.
That's right.
So my whole plan was to lose weight and then get down to a certain amount of weight loss and then get my knee replaced because I figured it would be easier to do exercise. It would be easier to heal. I don't know that it was easier. I think getting my knee replaced was one of the hardest things. It was actually way harder than the bariatric surgery. It was one of the hardest times I've ever gone through. It was so painful. And they cut your tendon. I mean, basically they cut the muscle from your upper leg to your knee and it gets reconnected, by the doc, but then you have to rebuild those muscles and it is so much maintenance. You think bariatric surgery is maintenance? Getting a knee replacement is maintenance. So I had to deal with both of those.
Yeah.
It's not been easy at all.
No, and you're a very, very strong person, and your dedication, because you're such a successful musician, your dedication to to becoming successful at a musician is also being successful at your bariatric surgery and knee replacement surgery. Mm-hmm. It's about dedication. It's just like you go into it 100%. You can't go into it 50%. You have to go into it 100%.
And the way I could do 100% is between my decision, which was about the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, my decision to get bariatric surgery, and April 5th, 2022, I also decided that I was going to change my career path. So basically, COVID was probably, I'm going to say this, and I don't say it lightly, was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it forced me to stop and reevaluate everything that I was doing in my life, how I was taking care of myself, how I was taking care of my family. My mom and dad were just getting older and they needed more help, and all of that stuff happened all at the same time. And I reevaluated my musical life, which probably we can go into that subject now.
Yeah. So you reevaluated your life, and you became and decided to go and look into becoming a certified music practitioner and death doula. So you're doing everything at once: knee replacement surgery, bariatric surgery, and now you're going to change your career and start a new study and learn this incredibly important, I don't know what the word is, practitioner. Is that the right word?
Okay, so when I was with Cafe Musique, towards the end of our time together, we had older fans who were getting older and older and sicker and sicker. Mm-hmm. And they would come to us and say, my husband or my wife or my whatever loves your music so much, and they just have been diagnosed with a terminal illness, and they're at home, they have cancer, they would love it if you could come over and play. And I had done stuff like this before, but it started to feel really uncomfortable because I didn't know our playing was helping them sometimes or making it worse. I didn't know if we were doing the right thing or playing the right way. And back in 1987, I had really contemplated whether or not I was going to go into music therapy at the University of Arizona, Phoenix, or become a concert violinist. And because I had done so well as a concert violinist, I chose that route instead of being a music therapist. So I always had that in me. I had that path in me to help people with music. Yeah. I just did it from the stage in front of thousands of people instead of what I do now. So being a music therapist, you take a patient and you bring them as close to an end goal as possible, just like a physical therapist or an occupational therapist. Any type of therapist wants to get to an end goal. They have a place that they want to bring the patient to. As a practitioner, I thought, oh my gosh, I have to go through all that schooling. It's like 4 years of school. It's very expensive. And then you have to do another 2 years of internship in a hospital or facility that will actually take you and let you do your practicum. There are 75% of hospitals, at least in California, I think don't have music therapists. I mean, it's just still a complementary care program to allopathic conventional medicine that is not widely accepted enough in our society. So there must be something between a hospice musician who plays just for people by the bedside who are either dying or they're even imminent, or they're in hospice care that could go on for years, and you'd go and play for the same patients, and you're part of a hospice team. Hospice musicians are not contracted with hospitals normally. You won't see just a hospice musician going into a hospital without going through Medicare and being part of Medicare guidelines. That patient has to qualify for that music to be brought into their room. And then the music therapist thing was too long. So what's in the middle? So I decided maybe there's something like a practitioner. I looked up online and talked to a few people, and I found a program called Music for Healing and Transition Program, MHTP. And I'm sure that Wendy will put a link up for all.
I'll have a link and I'll show the logo here on the video as well. But I'll in the description part of the podcast, I'll put a link to that particular organization and that course. Yes.
So it was, of course, an online course. No one was meeting in person. It had been all in person at one point, but they figured out how to do it online. So they had the little squares of people, and we all
the Brady Bunch look
how to share our music and go through this program.
Yeah.
The program was 5 modules. It was about 18 hours worth of being online every weekend for about 6 months, or however long it takes you to do the 5 modules. You don't have to do it consecutively. You could do 1 and 2, and then I think you could skip around. 5 is the last one, and 5 is like transitions, end of life care. So this program teaches you a scientific way. I couldn't believe how much medical stuff I had to do. I had to study acronyms that they use in the hospitals. I had to study The Power of Sound by Jeremy Leeds, which was really a hard book to read, about vibrations and frequencies and resonance and entrainment. Very important word. I didn't know it was all that. And I was so grateful to finally figure out how to play music for people who were sick, that I couldn't just go up there and play like the Beethoven violin concerto for them after they've had a massive stroke and part of their brain is missing. You can't do that.
No.
You have to play music in a very, very certain way per patient condition, whether it's an acute condition or a chronic condition.
So at the beginning, when you were doing your sort of practical presentations in hospitals or retirement homes, would there be somebody there from the actual program that is watching you, or did you go in alone, or how, see you're doing it right? I would assume you have to learn how to read the charts of the patient and say, well, this patient has dementia, this patient just had surgery, this patient is dying of stage 4 cancer.
Yes. Good question. You're taught in this online module, they do a lot of breakout rooms, and they put you in scenarios just like what you're saying. And then a teacher will see how you're handling it or what you've chosen to do and correct you if need be. So that's how we learned how to do it. But then once you get to the practicum points, once you have passed the final exam of these 5 modules, you have to do a 50-hour practicum, which means volunteering by the bedside in whatever facility will take you.
Mm-hmm.
Allow you to do that.
That's right. So you had to convince these hospitals that have never had this before. You walk in and say, hi, I'm Brynn and I play violin and I just did this course. Can I come and play for your patients? How was that experience?
So what the lucky part of it was that in 2021, in November, I decided to, I don't know exactly how I did it, but I think I got in touch with this large hospital that I was going to be getting a surgery in. I got in touch with the mission integration director of the senior mission integration director of that hospital. It's a Catholic hospital system called Dignity Health, Santa Maria, California, Marion Regional Medical Center, Marion with an A. I went in there and I said, I'm Brynn Albanese. I am a concert violinist. I know that your nurses are just absolutely at their breaking point because of COVID and how much turnover there has been in the hospital. I would like to offer to play music in your hallways. Mind you, I'm famous in my area. I'm not just any violinist. Let me do it once and see what you think. She said, yes, anything to help these nurses and doctors and techs and people working in the hospital that had just, there wasn't one ventilator, you guys, in the world available at that point.
Yeah.
Every single ventilator was gone.
Yeah.
And there was like a shortage of ventilators. So she let me into the lobbies in this November time that I went in. And the lobbies were completely empty. The cafeteria was empty and closed down, shut. It had been shut for a year. There was no one there. And she said, you know what? We're going in. So we both put on our N95 mask, not KN95, N95 that goes around the whole head. And she took me into those empty hallways with just the nurses and the staff. And I played music. And it was absolutely mind-blowing change.
Yeah.
People came out of the OR room, the operating room. They were dancing. They were crying. They had never had anything like that, pandemic or no pandemic, in their hallway. So I had this large Bose speaker that I was using for the backing tracks. And it was so surreal. And even the patients, some patients had their little
Ivy.
Ivy thing. And they came out and they were like, what's going on?
Yeah. They're on wheels for the pole.
The patients wore masks, everything.
Yeah.
And so that's how it started.
Yeah. And it's so here in Ontario, just briefly for our Ontario listeners, our medical staff is still overworked. There's still not enough medical staff. And so many of them are basically burned out and quitting because of the basic post-pandemic problem that it's just too many patients, not enough staff, but that the staff is very, very often forgotten, that they also need to be tended to with their mental health issues. Is that music is healing. Music is healing, and that's your tagline, right?
Music is medicine. So that's
music is medicine is your tagline. Sorry, music is medicine.
Yeah. So let me go more quickly through this. I had eventually seen 150 patients by the bedside.
Wow.
Completed my practicum, but it wasn't just in this hospital. I approached all of the local hospitals that someday I wanted to be able to be employed by, maybe someday. Also, huge thing that I really wanted to focus on in my own life was memory care, because my own mother has dementia. She is going through her journey. She's mild, moderate. She vacillates between early stages and the moderate stages of dementia. And I know that will change, and suddenly it will get bad, And I was like, I decided to go to a memory care facility and see if I could do some practicum there. And it was one that I had played with Café Musique and members of Café Musique for like a group setting. And watching how music affects these patients back then, before I did all of the schooling, was absolutely miraculous.
Yep.
I mean, just miraculous to somebody who's in, the fifth and sixth stages of Alzheimer's, who's just staring. There's nothing. You play music and there's a little finger tap or a gleam in the eye or a little corner of the mouth going up. I mean, those subtle things you start noticing. So I did my practicum there and finally finished all of my practicum. And I became a graduate of the Music for Healing and Transitions program. During the Music for Healing and Transitions program, I also became an end-of-life doula through the International End-of-Life Doula Association. So I did 2 online training sessions because guess what? There was time to do it.
That's right.
We're all flitting around trying to totally asleep in our lives, esoterically speaking, just trying to make money and live your life. You're not paying attention to anything except that. I finally was like, I want to help people in their last months or weeks or hours, days of life. So I took the International End-of-Life Doula Association training. Wendy will put that also in.
Yeah. And then maybe for our listeners, you can play a little bit on your Indian flute. Your native flute. Yeah, because that is a very, very special sound and thing that you also do together with your violin.
It is. So I do play wooden Native American flutes, American style flutes. And I do that because the Music for Healing and Transitions program taught me that not all music is created equal, and not all of it is going to be therapeutic. It depends what you're playing, and it absolutely depends how you're playing, and what range you're playing, what mode you're playing, what key you're playing, what instrument you're playing. It was much more than I ever thought. So this is a beautiful walnut flute with cherry wood, mahogany,
Yeah.
cherry wood.
Beautiful flute.
One of 5 flutes that I have.
Yeah.
Let me just make sure that it's, I'll play a little bit for you guys. So let's say someone's on comfort care. Comfort care means that you've gotten the cocktail that keeps you somewhat sedated. Sometimes they give enough where you're just all the time sedated and you're not really going to wake back up again. That's towards the actively dying. But comfort care can also be just keeping someone comfortable with medication. If they are at that level, sometimes I'll decide to play the flute, depending on what they're suffering with. Some people who can have a lot of ear problems, sometimes they don't respond well to the violin. So I'll bring this out. This is what it sounds like. It's a little bit how that sounds.
Yeah, it's very that sort of thing you also hear for meditation as well, like a background sound of the people doing meditation, and it's such an interesting concept to be playing these native instruments, because going back to, of course, the violin has hundreds and hundreds of years of history, but the flute has thousands of years of history. And it's a really, really interesting addition to your care, but also as a death doula, that you're recognizing that like when you talked about all the different types of music that you play and all the different types of sounds that a patient can listen to, like when you're talking about a piece of music, like let's say I'm singing in the rain, or the first piece you played at the top of this Zoom call, Rainbow Connection with Kermit the Frog. Yeah. So the music, so you sort of have happy music, you have meditative music, you have music that brings up memories, and then you have the flute.
There's 5 different types of music that I play for the MHTP program. The first one is called distraction music. Then there's memory music. For the acute patient, we're going to call it vital signs stabilization, relaxation response, and then the 5th one is transition support. And within those 5 categories, there is a myriad of different types of music that you can play. It has to be certain tempos, certain timbres. This is my big, huge Native American style flute.
Yeah, yeah.
And
how long is it? For those that are listening to our podcast, how long is this flute? Yeah, is it 3 feet? Is it 3 feet long about?
3 feet, definitely. Yeah. You can see how big it is.
Yeah, it's just it kind of looks like a smaller version of a didgeridoo, if anybody knows what didgeridoo is, but it's
so anyway, this is what this sounds like. This is respectfully called my death flute.
Maybe not too close to the mic, because it didn't like it when you went too close.
So
yeah, so when you think about music as medicine, like you said, your theme, so the immediately when you're hearing that sound, it gives you a sense of peace. And it, like, I think about a big, like, open area somewhere in Nevada or something, where you're looking up at the sky and you're seeing birds fly by, and it's a sunset, and you're just immediately at peace. And I can imagine that would be the actual goal when you're doing this with a patient.
Yes, and we call that a visualization exercises. So a lot of times I'll take even certain pieces with the violin, and I'll ask the patient, close your eyes and try to take yourself away from this hospital. Take yourself away and see if you can put yourself somewhere else with this music. So, to get back to my certification, I finally became certified after I finished all of my practicum. And then the end goal for me was to get a job.
That's right. Start making some money.
Again.
Yep.
I've started again, and I had gotten my bariatric surgery in 2022, so I had to take a few breaks here and there. And I told them I wanted to get myself established enough that Brynn is getting a surgery at the hospital she's done her practicum in. I wonder when she's coming back. They were like, she wanted me to come back, the mission integration director, and then eventually the CEO got in on it, and the CEO started hearing from different parts of the hospital that my visits were beginning to make an impact.
That's great.
And that is exactly what I wanted. My end goal for that was that I wanted to get music into the culture and the environment of the hospital as a complementary care to not only the patients, but the staff as well.
Because, and then pointing out just at the beginning when you talked about it, it's not very common in the Central California or California area for this sort of thing to be happening in hospitals. So how did you end up getting money and getting paid? Fortunately, I'm very good with entrepreneurial stuff. So I have my own concert series. I was able to, I'm not good at the technical part of it. That's where you come in handy, Wendy. So I realized that I needed to have a nonprofit organization, a platform of some kind for people to, if they were interested, to be able to support me while I'm doing this work in places that, number one, didn't pay me, and number two, couldn't pay me. Right.
So addiction treatment centers or developmentally disabled and handicapped daycare centers, maybe some state-run facilities that don't have extra funds for that. But also in the facilities that I did have enough money, but they just weren't paying me yet, I still wanted to be paid for my work. So I approached a company called Ecologistics, and that we'll put that in the bio too.
Yep.
Ecologistics.org. And they are social justice, environmental justice, and economic justice support platform for projects. So if anybody out there is familiar with Pioneers, it's like a scientific-based company that supports these impact projects that people come up with. And some of them are just magnificently creative. Mine happened to be the only one of its kind that anybody had ever come to them for support. Now, they don't financially support you. What they do is they provide a platform for you to be seen. They provide a platform for people to be able to donate money for whatever you need. Or you can do recordings. You can use the money for basically anything that you need to support what you're doing. So my company, or my name for what Brynn does, is called Pneuma Melodies. Pneuma, Pneuma. Your pneuma is your life force. It's here. Your pneuma is your breath. It's your wind. It's your oxygen. It's basically what keeps us alive. Having muscles, having blood, having bones, having tissue, having neurons in your brain, none of that matters unless you have oxygen. If you don't have oxygen, you're dead. And that's why every ventilator...
Sorry about that. There's Winnie, my dog. She's protecting us. Her pneuma is being used to protect us, and her oxygen and very loud lungs. Winnie. Okay, go on.
So, yes, the pneuma. So our pneumas need to stay healthy. And if your pneuma gets infected, you get pneumonia.
Right. There's the word.
Okay. So, and both my parents had pneumonia 2 weeks apart from each other just this last May.
And you played for them in the hospital.
That was a journey.
Yes.
There are some YouTube videos of me playing as a CMP for my own parents. So using that Pneuma Melodies for the ecologistics.org site was perfect for them. And they decided to make me an employee, the first employee ever of ecologistics.org, which is all a volunteer program. But that was the only way that people could donate to my platform, but still I could get paid as a W-2 worker. Yeah, it's
complicated, and that again points to, you know, the big gap and hole in our whole medical system worldwide, in especially North America, is not putting enough emphasis on just, it's not about broken bones, it's not about surgery, it's a whole everything, including something as important as what you're doing as a certified music practitioner and death doula, is that you should be part of staff of a hospital. You should be on staff, and you shouldn't have to rely on an external non-for-profit organization that is willing to help you with fundraising and pay you for doing this work in the hospitals. And that, you know, because you're a pioneer in this, and maybe 50 years from now, this will be a part of a regular hospital staff, seeing that the inpatient experience is so much more elevated when they have somebody like you playing for them.
Well, it could be like aromatherapy, dog petting programs, you know, all that kind of stuff. Those are called complementary care programs. But a lot of people market themselves as alternative medicine, and don't ever do that. When
right.
You're trying to get into a corporate scene, don't ever do that. Don't say, well, I have this alternative. No, they hear the word alternative and you're gone. But if you use the word practitioner, so when I go into a hospital now and the nurses introduce me to the patients as, we have this lovely violinist here to play for you, the thing that they think of right away is a violinist performing for them with no backup, no orchestra, no nothing. They have it performing for them, and that doesn't sound at all relaxing.
No.
When they say, we have our certified music practitioner here to offer you bedside therapeutic session, would you like that?
Yes.
I would like that.
Yeah, or the family will say, yes, we would like that.
Yeah, or if somebody is cognitively impaired and they can't, I just swoop in right away to those patients, because what it does is sometimes a person with dementia or Alzheimer's will be extremely agitated and very confused about where they are, and they will actually be combative with the staffing. And it's hard for nurses to get any information out of them, number one. And number two, sometimes they can't do things to them. Sometimes they can't do the procedures. So now that I've been working at Marion Regional, they are paying me now because I made enough of an impact that the CEO was like, you know what, we got to get her somehow on staff for part-time, but not as an employee. So we figured out a way to do it.
Yeah.
So Ecologistics doesn't pay for that anymore. But when I go into a room with a cognitively impaired patient, I will play something for them that refocuses them to me. And when they're refocused and they're listening to the music and something is being drummed up for their memory, like if I play Moon River or something that everyone knows, like Over the Rainbow, or suddenly the nurses are like, oh my God, we can actually do this now. Let's hurry up and get it done.
Okay. So the nurses, they what did they need to do? Like to roll them, clean them, wash them, give them medications?
Toileting things that are really hard with people who have mobility issues, who are also cognitively impaired, like my own mother.
Yeah.
You want to get them to do something and they're combative and they don't want you to move them, or
I see.
Also, people who have cognitive issues cannot be medicated like you and I can. You can't just give them like a sedative.
Right.
Their brain is already struggling so much that So you have to find other ways. Music is probably the most powerful tool that you can use for somebody who has cognitively impaired issues.
Well, this has been absolutely like mind-blowing experience to learn. Like, we've known each other for so many years, and I'm thinking the whole time, wellness journey, wellness journey, wellness journey. So my question I was going to ask you, with this, everything that's happened with your entire career, playing with some of the best orchestras in the world, dealing with your own bariatric surgery and then knee replacement surgery, your own wellness journey, how has this opened up? Because you're now in the position where you're playing for people and music is opening up so many paths for them as well, and as well as their caregivers. How has that affected you in your wellness journey?
I think I feel like I'm getting the best of all worlds now, as professionally speaking. So I still, without speaking about that yet, I still struggle every single day with food and exercise. Every day. Breakfast becomes a drink. If I want to keep my weight up. I'm now over 2 years out. I just reached the 2-year mark in April of this year, but I have gained almost 20 pounds.
So
can that happen? My knee has a lot to do with it, not being able to do this or that, eating at the wrong times, eating the wrong foods at the wrong times. I'm doing everything I possibly can to help that journey, but also my spouse and I have moved in with my parents in 2021 due to a massive flooding issue in Cambria. We had 12 inches of rain. You have to look that up and how many centimeters that is. 12 inches of rain in 2 days.
Yeah.
6 inches of rain a day, and we were forced to move in
with your parents. So going back.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Yeah, so I was going to say, going back to the original question of your wellness journey. So feeling good, the dopamine effect that you get. So we all had that after a performance. You played with the Boston Symphony. I played in Amsterdam. And after a concert, you had this high. You felt great. And so if you're playing for a patient and you see that by playing for the patient, you see that your music affected their life and their family's life, that also helps with the good feeling that dopamine does give you, like when you go to the gym, but also when with the work you're doing. So if, like, for example, do you feel that, and does that affect the way it affects me is that when I'm feeling good, I don't actually eat. So that how does that affect you? Like, you're getting these dopamine hits for doing this work now in the hospitals.
Yeah. I have to be very honest with all of you out there. It is not 100% that you're going to reach each patient and it's going to be a fabulous dopamine experience.
Yeah. It's going to be hard too.
At all.
No, because the end of life is hard.
No, not even that. Like, I'll go in and introduce myself as a certified music practitioner for the hospital, and may I play some music for you? Oh no, I'm okay. I'm good.
All right.
And you go on to the next patient, or you begin to play, and the patient's like, you know what? This isn't working for me. You have to stop.
Okay.
That's what I have to do. I have to be. Thank you so much for allowing me to try. I wish you the best, and I have to turn around and leave. Re-heart center myself. Wish that patient the best experience and move on.
Yeah.
I would say that happens probably 25% of the time.
Okay, that's good for us to all know. That's good to know.
It is not. It's not in the bag. Like, you're not going to get that great experience every time.
Okay.
And you also, if you go into a room as a CMP with any type of expectation at all, you shouldn't even be going into that room.
Okay. Got it.
Expectations lead to resentment in all parts of our lives. If we expect too much of ourselves, we start building resentment. If we expect too much from our friends or our loved ones, it leads to resentment as family members.
Yeah.
It's just to go in, to move through life with as few expectations as possible is really how I'm trying to live my life and have it be the most successful, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. But it's still, in the end, going back, it's still fantastic that you're doing this and offer this service because it's so unique and not many people do it. Are there other certified music practitioners in the California area or death doulas?
Okay. So you're speaking about California as if it's a small place.
It's not.
Southern California, there's Central California, and there's Northern California.
Okay, so Central California.
100 million people who live. So the Central Coast of California, I am the only certified music practitioner.
Wow.
So, and I don't know how many people are in this area, but it's a couple million, probably 1 million people. So that tells you how much this is not a thing here.
No, it's very new.
None of our hospitals or care centers have music programs. They'll have like group playing, like all the senior centers and memory care centers have like group performance. They pay a musician like $100 to go play once a month. Okay, once a month. That is going to affect that patient for an hour once a month. That seems not enough to me.
No.
So now I go into the memory care facility with eco-logistics money so I can pay myself once a week for 2 hours. And there are 3 neighborhoods. I go to neighborhood 1, which is early stages, neighborhood 2, which is the vacillating in and out of early and middle and end stages, and then neighborhood 3, which is people with primary progressive aphasia, which you'll have to look that up. That is one of the worst Alzheimer's or under the dementia umbrella that I have ever read and seen anything.
Yeah. So for those that are listening and really would like to support Brynn's amazing work that she does for the patients in the Central California area, I'm going to be also adding a link in the podcast description area to where you can donate to Brynn through this company. What's it called again, Brynn?
Eco-logistics.
Eco-logistics. I had it on the tip of my tongue. Eco-logistics. If you really believe the work that she's doing is very, very important, and which I totally believe. Brynn was recently visiting me here in Toronto for 2 weeks when I sort of a mini 65 birthday party visit. While she was here, she actually performed in a retirement home in Brampton, which is like a suburb of Toronto, at the Holland Christian Homes in Brampton. And she played for the nursing home tenants there and did a wonderful, was about an hour presentation of the type of music that she would normally play, indeed, in the hospitals and whatnot. And looking around the room, people there that were in various stages of their end of life, and there was a lot of toe tapping, a lot of smiles, and it was really a wonderful experience. And that and it's, again, music is medicine, and it's really wonderful the work that you do in doing this for the people of Central California. And then also, not to forget, a very important thing, in that you recently did, when you played in Juneau with the Juneau Symphony, you also did a presentation to the nursing and doctor staff in the hospital there. And this week, you're also doing another presentation to the staff about what you're doing.
Yes, I have been invited, and it's incredible. I feel so grateful for this opportunity of presenting on Wednesday to the big hospital, South County Dignity Health and Central Coast Dignity Health, the managers meeting. So these are between 80 and 100 managers from every single sector of Dignity Health in that county are supposed to come to this luncheon, and I give a 17-minute musical PowerPoint presentation about what the heck I am doing.
Mm-hmm.
Dignity Health, a lot of physicians go by me and they see me playing my violin and they're like, what is this? And so now I finally get to present and tell. And then French Hospital their patient experience director invited me to do the same one on Thursday. So this coming Wednesday and Thursday, I'm doing presentations, which are going to be definitely life-changing for me.
Yeah, yeah. And is something like that also going to be available on YouTube for other people, if people are be interested to watch it and the presentation?
No, not to the in the private organizations, but
No.
My goal. This is
Yeah.
my little end goal for this project is to someday do a TED Talk.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to do a TED Talk on going from a concert violinist playing performances for thousands of people to a certified music practitioner playing music as a service.
So if anybody listening out there knows how to get in contact with Brynn, or would like to, on behalf, get Brynn in contact with the TED Talk people, because I absolutely agree that you're perfect material for a TED Talk, and talking about, especially a TED Talk that is geared towards the hospital and retirement industry, that how important music is as a form of medicine. It helps the patient, it helps the staff. And it's a really, I think you're a fantastic pioneer. The fact that you're the only one in Central California, there are way more than 1 million people. We're talking tens of millions of people. That you're the only one. It's very unique, Brynn. Very unique. So are we going to wrap out with a piece that you're going to play for us?
We could be here for another 5 hours. You know?
I know. There's
so much to talk about. As far as the wellness journey is concerned, this whole thing has made me more well in myself, inside myself.
That's that's what the answer I was looking for. I see it myself. I've seen you change as well. You're a change person.
It's not that I wasn't happy what I was doing. I'm happier because I'm helping people, and people the higher ups are starting to see that is an important issue that needs to be
supported. Yeah, it needs to be supported.
Yes, and then also the piece within myself about taking care of my own mom, that I do the best I can. And it's hard for married life to be living with one of the spouse's parents, and having my spouse not have to caregive, and like, we don't have a lot of money. So there you have to go through signing my mom up for extra qualifications for extra help and blah, blah, blah. So there's all that too. But whenever I go to work, guess what happens? I'm renewed every time I go to work, because I love what I do. I think it's really important for people to try their best to do something that they like or love.
Yes.
If you are not happy in what you are doing as a vocation in your life,
change.
It could kill you.
Yeah, that's right. You have to like what you're doing. You have to like what you're doing. Yeah. We both have had the incredible fortune of being professional musicians. We really liked what we were doing to a point.
Yes.
Until you have to play Star Wars 50,000 times.
What if you don't like what you're doing and you can't change what you're doing? Then it becomes another sort of esoteric thing where you need to figure out a way to wake up and enjoy something about what you're doing. Like being grateful for the smallest of things. Like maybe the 15-minute break that you have, you could be grateful for that.
Yeah, the mindfulness.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's easier said than done. But what I'd like to share with you now is a fairly new addition to my repertoire, which is a backing track that I found. And I don't always play with backing tracks, by the way, but this one I think is gorgeous. It's the song called Stand By Me, but it's played in a way I'd never heard it before. Just this last week, I watched a patient take their last breath, a very young man, 27 years old, from stomach cancer. As I was playing this piece, he took his last breath.
Wow.
And I watched it, and I watched the family become, hysterical with grief. But it was a release for everybody. It was like they were all holding their breath. And then as I was playing this, somebody realized that he hadn't taken a breath for a while. And he was dead. He was dead.
He was gone.
And it was a blessing. It was a huge blessing. So,
well, as we listen to Brynn play this piece, I wanted to thank Brynn so much again for coming today on my podcast, and for all of you listeners that are, hanging on to her very last note. I think it's just wonderful that you decided to and agreed to come on to my podcast and share your stories. And this will not be the last time. You'll be back for more updates later. But I'll just leave it up to you and play us out, Brynn.
Life is a journey, and we all have our own journeys that are unique. So here we go.
Thank you, Brynn.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.